Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As we are coming closer to Q4 and retail season, we're keen to talk through how Microsoft advertising can help support your goals and increase your revenues at this very important time of year. So by way of introduction, my name's Nikki and I'm joined by my colleague Alex. And together we run the partner support desk at ClickTech, which allows us to troubleshoot and help our partners to improve their Microsoft campaigns. So that's why we're here today, chatting you through what you can do in the coming months as people start shopping for gifts and festive shopping. And I'm sorry, we will be using the word Christmas during this webinar. I know it feels early, but as you will find out, it's not actually that early. We're not that ahead of time for people doing Christmas shopping. So today we'll be going through the valuable audience that's available on Microsoft. We're also going to be talking about how you can prep early for success. As we say, Christmas shopping starts much earlier than you might think it does. And we'll be talking about how to pick and mix your formats and your campaign types to get the most out of the Microsoft platform in Q4. So firstly, it's worth recapping the Microsoft ecosystem itself, because for those of you who are a bit more familiar with the Google ecosystem, you might not be aware of the main placements and properties that are available on Microsoft. So we've got you, and you'll notice a lot of these are number 2 to Google quite often. So they're the second most popular platforms in a range of areas. So we've got MSN, which is number 1 in content. This has got over 550 million monthly readers. So if, like me, you know MSN as a platform that you use to chat to school friends, it's more of a content site nowadays, and it has a really strong usership. We've also got Edge as the number 2 largest desktop browser, Outlook with over 190 million monthly users, which again, second largest mail service to Gmail. If you weren't aware, Microsoft also own LinkedIn, which has over 1 billion members. So that's really helpful in the ecosystem for that reach. You'll also hear a lot about Copilot. The usership of this has grown almost 2 times since it was relaunched last year. And it's been embedded into a range of Microsoft properties as well, which gives loads more opportunities to reach those users. Bing, which you might know as the core of that kind of ecosystem. So people often worry that the volume's limited, but again, there's over 595 million monthly users on there. So it's not small. And also gaming. Gaming is a really large part of the Microsoft ecosystem, with Solitaire being the world's most played game ever, believe it or not. And the Microsoft usership are really useful as well. So they're 15% more likely to make a purchase online. They spend on average twice more than the average internet user. And they also engage with ads a lot more often than other internet users as well. So even if you feel the volume's limited, which it's not really nowadays, they're a really valuable audience to reach. And we've seen this growth consistently over the last few years. We're seeing a lot more retail searches. We've seen 19% growth in retail demand between Q1 and Q1 year on year. And we also see strong growth within certain categories in the run up to summer, and then that retail demand as we come towards Christmas shopping, which again starts quite early as people try to get organized. And I mentioned Copilot because it's one of the newer, cooler, more exciting placements in the ecosystem, and the usership is on the rise. So as I say, the growth has been 1.8 times since it was relaunched. And when I say relaunched, that's beyond it just being a tab on Bing, and now it's a platform in its own right. There's been 2.5 times growth of daily voice usage as well. I don't know if you've ever spoken to Copilot using its voice function. It's quite uncanny. I definitely recommend trying it out if you haven't already. And 30% of Copilot mobile users are Gen Z as well. So where we have this assumption that the Microsoft audience skews a bit older, again, it's just not really the case nowadays. And because we can show ads in Copilot, it's particularly interesting where Copilot has been built in across the ecosystem. So whether it's building CVs on LinkedIn, using it on Bing alongside search, summarizing emails and drafting replies on Outlook, gaming with more personalized experiences, using the chat ads API for brands to manage their appearance there. Edge, as the browser, has Copilot built into it, and MSN uses it to personalize real-time content curation as well. So as you can see, there's a real range of opportunities to serve to users within Copilot chat across loads of different platforms. And now I'm going to hand over to Alex to talk to you a little bit more about how you can start prepping early for that success.
Thanks, Nikki. So yes, preparing early for success is more and more important than ever, really. We know it's getting kind of earlier and earlier every year. We know that economically things are quite difficult. People have less disposable income, which means they're researching more, looking for better offers, which means to take more time before converting. And we can see some statistics here around how long that does take. So the average shopper taking 47 days before converting. And some of the metrics really here around November conversions. So people converting in November, that first click happened actually the month before in October, 67% of the time. And actually you can see that even more so in December with 49% of clicks in October. So 2 months before, with a further 21% of clicks in November before they actually converted. So we know that people are researching over this period and they're taking longer before they're converting, which means we need to prepare early. We need to make sure that our campaigns are set up and ready to go. Realistically, I mean, we're getting towards the end of September now, so pretty much from now onwards, getting those campaigns ready to go. You can see that again in this next slide, just by categories. So, you know, different percentages, but essentially the pattern is the same. We can see in the apparel or the fashion space there, probably most prominent with 50% of December conversions actually coming from October. So that's obviously a category where people are doing a lot more research. And it's important to note that people around this time aren't familiar with these products necessarily. They're buying gifts for other people. So they might not know the brands, they don't know the products, which means they are going to have to do more research around them, look at reviews and compare them against each other, whilst also that aspect of looking for good deals as well. So really important that we're in front of them at the right time and as early as possible when they're doing that initial research. And here I think is just a really good example of how that could look for you. Obviously, will be dependent on your clients and exactly what activity that they want to run. But we can see here an example of in September, October, you might want to run some brand awareness, so audience ads, more visual ads, and getting your brand out there. And then as we get into October, November is when you would want to have your search campaigns, so campaigns targeting specific keywords that people are then searching for that brand or that product and making sure we're in front of them at that time. And kind of overlaying that at the end of the peak season with shopping campaigns, for example, which visual format of that specific product. People have done their research, they're now ready to convert, and we're putting that product in front of them at that time. So that's a kind of good structure of how this could work across the full funnel, across multiple different formats. And it's really important to note as well around remarketing. So when you get to that sort of later part of the season, we want to make sure that we have a strong remarketing strategy. And a really cool thing about Microsoft is they have impression-based remarketing, which is exclusive to them. Google don't have it. And this is where you can remarket to people that have been served your ad, have seen your ad, but not necessarily clicked on it and been through to the website. So a really cool new feature that you can utilize in Microsoft as well. Now moving on to sort of pick a mix of different formats and different campaign types that you could use. Again, just wanted to sort of make sure you are fully aware of how using multiple formats, multiple different ads and audience types really impacts. We can see the example here. When people use 5 different formats, there's a 20% more likely chance of increasing revenue from that. So if you're just using a standalone campaign, you're likely going to be limiting the amount of sales, the amount of revenue that you can have for that client. We want to be across multiple different formats to be able to maximize the full funnel and maximize the sales volumes that are coming in as well. And the really great thing about Microsoft is we can do this within the one platform. So you don't need to be in multiple different platforms or multiple different areas. It can all be done within the Microsoft ecosystem, within Microsoft advertising. You can have multiple different campaign types, which we're going to touch on again later on, and multiple different sort of features that you can adopt to make sure you are sort of the full funnel and moving people through that from awareness to conversion, all within the one ecosystem, the one platform. And this one, I mean, I love this this diagram, this example, because it shows that you can see the funnel there from awareness, top of the funnel, through to consideration, where people are then researching products and brands, and then obviously when they're ready to convert, re-engage and remarketing to them. We've kind of touched on some of these and how you can use them, but the one we haven't mentioned yet is Performance Max, and that is one which is a multiple format. So it does everything from the top middle funnel, the engagement piece, to the conversion piece, because it obviously has search ads as well. It has the shopping feed as well. So it can do multiple different things within that one campaign type. And you can see how that can then work from awareness all the way through to conversion within that. And then the sort of more standard structure that we mentioned in the previous slide around audience, brand awareness ads at that top of the funnel, search ads and shopping ads are the sort of consideration and conversion stage. And of course, as I said, not forgetting your remarketing strategy, which can overlay your remarketing audiences, you know, on your search, shopping campaigns and your audience campaigns as well, to make sure that you're getting after everyone and not leaving any money on the table, essentially. And the last thing I wanted to touch on from this section is around um, the different audiences that you can target. So we've touched on campaigns, but within those campaigns, there's obviously multiple different types of audiences that you can target. I'm not going to go through all of these, but we can pick out a couple of them here. We've got in-market interest-based audiences, so that's more top of the funnel activity. And if you were to use those, as against not using them at all, we can see up to a 42% higher conversion rate when utilizing those. And then we've got remarketing and dynamic remarketing, which is when you're remarketing personalized products. So someone's viewed a certain product on your website, so then dynamically remarketing to them that same product again when they're later browsing. And within that, we can see 164% higher conversion rates than if we weren't to use that activity. So the value is there within these audience types, and we need to make sure that we're using all of them within the right campaigns and that are relevant to our clients and our customers to make sure we're maximizing those sales. And the second graph there at the bottom just kind of reinforcing that point around if we're using audience ads and search ads, we can see purchases are 7 times more likely to happen than if we were just using search campaigns, for example. So when we have this multi-format option and utilizing all the right audiences, that can mean that we're going to essentially more likely to convert, have higher purchases, have higher average order values and higher revenue. So that's what we obviously want to see for our clients. And then, yeah, the last thing here, again, around AI, we know it's a hot topic at the moment, but it is something that we have to consider within our campaigns as well. And it is changing the way that people are searching and will continue to search. So, for example, in the past, we might have had search campaigns which are very much kind of just that lower funnel, ready to convert type search. So it might be best mattress, for example. Whereas now people have more question style searches. 76% of people are utilizing AI in that way. And in that example, they might instead search for what is the best mattress if I have a bad back. And they're then going to have that conversation with AI around the different options, around the different considerations. And at the end of that, Copilot, for example, could show them a certain brand or a certain product that would be suitable for them. And again, if you've got the right campaign types, PMAX, for example, could show potentially ads within Copilot. So if we're utilizing the right features and we're making sure we have this in our heads around the changing landscape and how people are searching, we can make sure that we're optimizing towards that and obviously showing in the right places to take advantage of that as well, which I think segues quite nicely into the next section, which is Niki on search ads. Oh, sorry, Nikki, I can't hear you. Just wanted to.
Oh dear, it's always the mute button, isn't it? Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I can see we've had a couple of questions come through the chat as well. Please do keep them coming because we'll come back to them at the end. Now, if you're stuck for any kind of ad copy test ideas while you're working through your, sorry everyone, technical, there we go. While you're working through your plans, we've got a range of different things that you can test here as well. I know sometimes it can be a bit difficult to come up with loads of different types of creative when you know your product so well and you know the main USPs. So we recommend here testing things like urgency, so letting people know when your offers are ending, value in terms of discounts, and also trying to pull at emotional heartstrings and encouraging people to treat themselves. Any kind of descriptions around benefit-led versus feature-led, so whether it's details about the product itself, or to Alex's example around mattresses there, what's the reason that you're looking for that product, and is there a certain benefit that you want to call out there? Calls to action might sound really obvious. When you look at your own website, you might think it's really obvious what you're asking the user to do. It's not necessarily as obvious as you think it is. So make sure you include a call to action as to what you want your customers to do. Do you want them to add something to a wish list, buy now, or browse around products? Keyword insertion is also a really good opportunity to make your ads as relevant as possible without having to create hundreds of different variations of your assets. So by using dynamic keyword insertion, you can have the user's query in your ad without needing to manually make those variations. And then finally, countdowns can be really helpful as well. So if you're running, let's say, a Black Friday offer, a Cyber Monday offer, using a dynamic countdown in your ad will tell the user how long is left of that promotion. And again, that updates automatically. So it counts down by the hour, so you don't have to keep updating ad copy, which you wouldn't want to need to be doing. We also recommend multimedia ads to grab attention in the search engine results page. And you can see an example of these here on the right-hand side. As you can see, these are big formats. This is kind of real size that they're going to show up in the SERPs. So they're very visually rich and encourage engagement from users. And only one of these can show in each auction. So if you're the one that's showing in this unit, none of your competitors are showing in this giant visual version of the ad. It can also show up against your text ad in search as well, which means you can show two ads in the same auction. So that's something that you don't usually get the opportunity to do outside of shopping ad showing. So if you're keen to run these, what we recommend is using high resolution lifestyle imagery rather than just product shots or pack shots. Try to have people in the images. Images with people in them generally perform better in all kinds of ads anyway. As I say, include your call to action, whether it's shop now or highlighting a limited time offer, because it's not always obvious what people need to do. And also try to keep your headlines short, benefit driven. Why should people be purchasing from you when they're busy browsing lots of different products? As Alex mentioned, potentially products that they don't usually buy because they're getting them as gifts for other people. And make sure it's related to the image as well. So you've got a really coherent, consistent message. There's also a range of ad extensions that are available to enhance the information in your ad, make the ad larger, give users more opportunities to interact. So we've called out two of these here. You can see the different options in the screenshot at the bottom, but the two that would be particularly relevant during this time of year would be image extensions and promotion extensions. So image extensions, as you might expect, add an image onto your ads, and it can help to showcase your product directly in the ad unit. These are especially helpful for advertisers that have inherently visual brands, so things like clothing, but the audience element of traffic that runs within your search campaign on Microsoft will use your image extension to dynamically create a native ad. It will form the background of that native ad. So make sure that you've got image extensions across all your campaigns year round. Otherwise, stock imagery might be used instead, and you'll find yourself saying, why is there a random picture of a man in the background of my ad? And it's because it's been paired that way by stock imagery automatically. The second one to call out here is promotion extensions. And the reason that we're mentioning these in particular is obviously, firstly, there's a lot of promotions going on around this time of year. And also they're really easy to add. You don't need feeds and complicated things like that. So you enter what you want to call your offer. So whether it's 20% off or Cyber Monday sale, you can include start and end date so the user can see how long they've got to make that purchase while it's on offer. And that can be scheduled to run at the times that you need it to. So again, we're trying to cut down on this manual workload or all this chopping and changing that you might need to do at this time of year, because frankly, we know everyone is busy enough as it is. And handing back over to Alex now to cover off some Performance Max opportunities as well.
Thanks, Niki. Yeah, so going into Performance Max and some of the best practices that we would recommend, especially from what we see across a vast number of accounts. I think the first one is what to expect when you set Performance Max live. Don't be too worried if it's not serving straight away within the first few hours. It can take up to 10 days to start serving and get up to speed. The learning period in total, it can be 2 to 4 weeks as well. So, and depending on volumes and the changes that you are making, then the data that it can pull from. It could take a bit of time to get up to full speed, which means don't set this live at the end of the peak season, November, December, and expect it to start, working really well straight away. It's not going to happen. So getting this live earlier in the season, allowing it to learn and optimize and then be ready for that end of the peak season is probably optimal there. Same thing around budgets. Try not to restrict it too much on budgets. A lot of people ask us what a recommendation here could be. Obviously, it is somewhat dependent on the total strategy for that client, but there are a couple of recommendations here to get you started. So, for example, 25-30% of similar Google budget, or 2 to 3 times the budget of a standalone search campaign that you're running on Microsoft, for example. This will give it enough to learn from, optimize towards, and get going and really start serving ads and find that optimal audience to get the best conversion for you. And a similar thing with bid strategies, and this wouldn't just be for PMAX, but across all of your campaigns really. When we're looking at bid strategies, try not to restrict them too much by efficiency. So don't have the ROAS too high, or don't have the CPA too low during this season, and especially at the beginning of a campaign. Let it first start getting data in and start optimizing before you try to restrict it too much. And again, during the sort of end of the peak season, when you want to maximize sales volumes, try not to be too restrictive on that efficiency, because you want to maximize volume and maximize the revenue that you can get. So you might need to have a sort of lower ROAS target at that time to maximize the sales and revenue coming into the business. The next point here is we're going to touch on the next couple of slides in a bit more detail, but ensuring that you have audience signals and search themes within your PMAX campaign are really key. This is the starting point for the campaign to be able to learn about your customers, and then to be able to go beyond that and find more of them. So really important. It's something that we see kind of missing from a lot of campaigns as well. So really important and key element to have in there. And we're kind of going to go into more detail on that. So I think this aligns with one of the questions that have come through as well around PMAX. I think it was from Kent there, where he said, doesn't PMAX need good data from search campaigns to know where to focus? Well, it's not necessarily it needs data from search campaigns, but it needs the audience signals and the search themes put into the PMAX campaign to be able to have a really good starting point to understand your customer, understand people that engage with your website, and then go beyond that and find more of them to get more conversions for you. So audience signals and search themes really key here. And what we've kind of want to drill home in this slide is make sure that around peak, that it's relevant to peak, and some of those elements as well. So when you're adding in-market interest-based audiences, make sure there's audiences there for Christmas, for Black Friday, for Cyber Monday. So make it relevant for the season as well, which is going to bring in people that are relevant for that campaign, but also are in that buying mode for peak season. And the second point around audience signals, which I'll say is most key, is use first-party data. We see a lot of campaigns don't have this. So again, add in your website visitor remarketing list, add in your previous converter list, because this is going to help the campaign learn about who converts from you. And then, as I said, go and find more of them and find more conversions. And hopefully that kind of answers your question around, doesn't it need data? It's not necessary that it needs data from search campaigns, but it needs a starting point with these sort of audiences signals put into the campaign, into the asset group at the beginning, and it's going to really help it perform as best it can from the beginning, and then go beyond that and obviously increase sales for the business. And the second thing is search themes, which you mentioned. So just to flag these are not targeted keywords. So again, this is an element where the PMAX campaign will look at the search themes and understand that type of customer, what they're searching for, what they're interested in, who engages with your website. And then it will go beyond that to find more people like that and find people that are going to convert for that campaign. So again, it's a really key starting point, but it isn't just a simple targeted keyword like a search campaign. And again, the main takeaway from this slide is to make sure you're adding in seasonal terms to this. So Cyber Monday, Christmas office, Boxing Day sales, all of those key things into your search themes. You get up to 25 search themes to include. So make sure you're utilizing all of that to give the campaign the best chance of success. Cool. And moving on to shopping campaigns. Just quickly, I know most of you will be aware of what a shopping ad is, but it's essentially that more visual ad you will see with the picture of the product at the top of the results, and it will probably have a headline and description of what exactly that product is. It'll have the price, it'll have where to buy it, and usually it'll have delivery information and any offers or deals on that product. This is based off a feed, so you're not targeting keywords or what someone's searching for, but you have a feed which is basically a huge Excel document with all of those attributes in it, and Microsoft will match up what someone's searching for with what's in your feed to show relevant products. Now, when it comes to peak, what we see a lot of people do is they just increase the budget slightly on their all year round campaigns. What we would advise is having separate peak campaigns. And this is going to basically allow you to have specific budgets for that peak season campaign. It's going to give you the flexibility to increase bids for that campaign and focus on certain products that you want over that gifting period. And when you're talking about shopping campaigns, you might say, well, I've got products that are in both my normal campaign and my peak campaign. How will I know which ones are going to show? Well, you can use campaign priorities. So what you can do in the campaign settings is simply put my peak campaign is high priority, my general campaign is medium or low priority. And what that's going to tell Microsoft to do is essentially, okay, if a relevant term comes up and someone is searching for certain footwear that will have in both campaigns, it's going to prioritize the peak campaign because that's high priority. Go ads to that first. Make sure you're maximizing the sales through your peak season campaigns. And once the budget is exhausted from that on a daily basis, it will then go to the general campaign there. So that's a really good way to prioritize which products you want to show or which campaigns you want to show first of all. Second thing I just wanted to touch on here is around segmenting those campaigns. So different ways that you can use segment your products again so that you can push certain products and maximize the sales for those. There's a number of different ways you can do that down the side here. So for example, it could be by certain brand, Nike or Adidas. It could be by the category of shoes, like running shoes, casual shoes, hiking boots, or it could be more things like the price range, the performance, your best sellers, or by seasonality, of course. There's certain products which are going to be more winter-based, winter coats, for example, rather than summer coats or sort of swimwear. So in that instance, you want to segregate them out. And again, this is just going to allow you to prioritize those certain product groups, push bids and push budgets more for those to maximize the sales of them. So really have a think about how your campaigns are set up. And if you need to, as I said, have a separate campaign for peak and segregate it properly so you can push the products that you want to push over that season. And finally, just on shopping is just some further sort of best practices that we would recommend. We kind of mentioned the first one, have an ad hoc campaign for the peak season, break that out into a separate campaign. Feed optimization. We touched on the fact that shopping campaigns don't have targeted keywords. They use what information is in feed of products, the information about the products. So make sure that you're optimizing the feed for peak season. Adjust the titles and descriptions to include Black Friday, Cyber Monday, gifting, or holiday season, whatever that may be. Ensure that is in the feed. So when people are searching for those types of things, your product is likely to show there. Adjust ROAS targets. I mentioned this earlier on around PMAX, but same thing. Make sure that you're not restricting campaign too much by an efficiency that's unrealistic for that time, or that's going to limit the amount of sales that you have available. Relax those targets to maximize the sales volumes that you have coming in. And the same with budgets. Think about what you can afford over that season and how competitive it's going to be. Obviously, all of your competitors are going to increase their budgets. If they're in retail, they're going to increase their bids. Is going to be a more competitive auction. So make sure that you have a realistic budget that's going to be able to compete with that and achieve the results that you want as well. Moving on, we're going back to Niki to talk about remarketing.
Thank you. So we've got lots of different ways that we can look at remarketing, but overall, all these different kinds of methods have a very similar benefit. So using remarketing, which generally just means showing to the same audience strategically. So it tends to give you higher conversion rates. And this is because these users have already seen your ad or visited your site. As we've mentioned, people are browsing a lot at this time of year. So they're going to lots of different sites repeatedly. Think about your own gifting behavior. You probably do this as well. When you're hunting around for gifts for friends and family, you might have kind of 3 different options that you keep looking between before you make a decision. So increase those conversion rates by capturing that user again and saying, we know you're still looking, so why don't you come back to us and have a look at our products again? This also tends to give you a lower cost per acquisition and a higher return on ad spend, because again, you're having to pay for fewer clicks to get people convinced to purchase from you. They're already familiar with you. You're already kind of trusted as far as they're concerned. You're able to also give personalized ad experiences. So if you were building remarketing lists, either through dynamic remarketing, so serving the exact product that a user's looked at, or building remarketing lists based on visits to certain product pages, you can personalize that experience because you already know a little bit about what they're interested in based on what they've looked at previously. And you can also extend this across your different campaign types. So you could build a list of users who have been to your site through search campaigns or audience campaigns and remarket the other way around to get extra value out of those different campaign types. And in general, a very compelling stat here, that campaigns with remarketing lists applied achieved on average a 179% higher conversion rate than campaigns without that audience targeting. So this is a very big difference. And I have to say, of all the different things that are available in the campaigns, remarketing isn't one of the really difficult fiddly things. It's actually fairly simple to set up. So if we look at user-based remarketing or visit-based, tag-based remarketing, this is what most people would think of when you say remarketing, of having a tag on your website. The user comes to your website, hits the tag, and gets added to your remarketing list. So it is absolutely essential that you have the Microsoft UET, which is the Universal Event Tracking tag, implemented across your website in order to build tag-based lists. For this kind of remarketing, it's that tag that captures the user. So without that tag, it's not going to work. So the way you go about doing this is go to the tools menu and you'll see an audience section. And in that audience page, click create. And then you name your remarketing list. Try and make it something that you'll recognize later, especially if you decide to create a number of different lists. It can be easy to get a bit muddled up later if they've got similar names. Choose remarketing list as the type, and then select the UET tag that you've got on your website that it should be collecting that audience from. You can then select the kinds of visitors and set rules for who should be added to that list. If you think about when you're in Excel and filtering a column, you can add conditions, contains, matches this. It's a similar kind of dynamic when you're choosing who to add to that list. The kinds of options that you've got here are visitors of a certain page. So it might be someone that's visited the basket page on your website. Page visit combinations. So it can be they've added something to basket, but they never purchased. So you know that they're still kind of in market to buy that item. Or it can be custom events. So someone's watched a video, they've downloaded a brochure off of your site. That allows you to really tailor your remarketing list to your website structure and what kind of options you've got available on your own site. Similar audiences is a great way of expanding these lists out as well. So those of you that are more experienced on the Google side might be aware that Google stopped using these a while back. So it's not possible to do on Google anymore, but Microsoft, they are still alive and kicking. And the way these work is that when you're building remarketing lists yourself, Microsoft will automatically, you don't have to do this, it does it for you, easy peasy, will analyze the users in your remarketing list, and they'll have a look at those users' online behaviors, what kind of content they consume, and Microsoft will build a similar audience for you. So a larger audience of users that are exhibiting similar behaviors to those in your remarketing lists. So this gives you an opportunity to expand your reach to relevant users, even if they don't necessarily fall within your current targeting. The fact that they're in a similar audience lets you know that they could be valuable to you. And another very compelling stat here, that you can tell how relevant these similar audiences are, because campaigns with similar audiences applied achieved a 24% lower CPA than campaigns that don't have audience targeting. So again, this audience targeting is really, really important for the efficiency of your campaigns. And just to answer a brief question in the chat there, we will be sharing the deck around after the webinar. So don't worry if you're manically taking notes or screenshotting or anything like that. We will share it around afterwards so you've got it to hand. And then we'd mentioned impression-based remarketing earlier on, and this is another Microsoft exclusive. And this is particularly good for if you've got a site that gets a lower volume of traffic. You might have tried to use tag-based remarketing and you might have found that the lists never get large enough to use because there's a minimum audience membership there. So if that's the case, or if you just want to reach a broader range of users, make the most of what you've spent, impression-based remarketing is a great option. You don't even need tagging. So if you're not a tagging kind of person, this is a way to avoid that. Impression-based remarketing lists can be built from impressions of up to 20 campaigns. So what you can do is build one list across all of your live campaigns of people that have seen your ads but not clicked on them. And then you can apply that to your campaigns that you're running. You can otherwise create more than one impression-based remarketing list if you want specific lists for specific product lines or campaign themes. And there's a number of ways that this can be really helpful, again, especially at this very high stakes time of year for retailers. So you can reconnect with users who viewed your ads around Christmas. So festive campaigns that you've created, you can create a list of those and then use it later in the new year when everything's on sale and you want to get them back in again. Cart abandoners, so people that started adding things to their basket and maybe changed their mind, wandered off and didn't end up buying. Category viewers, so if someone's been searching specific categories of products on your site, that can be a great way to group these users together. And you can also reinforce brand messaging for any product launches, seasonal collections, special events that you have running. These impression-based remarketing lists can build really, really valuable audiences to reach with those. And I'll hand over to Alex to cover up some of our newer opportunities that you'll find in AdZoomer, and then we can go to questions.
Amazing, thanks. Yeah, there's a couple of really cool new features that we wanted to call out really when you're in the AdZoomer platform. So both of these things are really going to help you set you up for success this peak. The first one is around the universal event tracking tag, so the UET tag for short. We know that you're going to be running all this activity. You of course want to make sure that your tracking is accurate. You want to be able to report and optimize based off correct information. So it's really important that you have all of your tracking in place. I mean, obviously you'd want that all year round anyway, but especially going into peak and probably spending more, this time of year anyway, you definitely want to make sure this is in place before you start your activity. And in Adzuma now, we can assess whether that is set up, whether it's set up but it's not working correctly, and it will give you some quick fixes of how to get that sorted if there is an issue. So a really valuable tool there within Adzuma. Definitely check that out, make sure that everything is working as it should, and you're set up ready for the busy peak season. And the second thing we wanted to cover off today is around dynamic product remarketing. So we've mentioned this a couple of times, dynamic remarketing. This is where someone has viewed a specific product on your website and they haven't purchased that at that time. We know customer journey is going to be a bit longer. People are going to do their research, so they haven't purchased at that time, but we can then show them that exact product later on when they're browsing again, and they are a lot more likely to convert at that point because they've done their research, they've already viewed it, they're highly engaged, and they are a lot more likely to convert. So again, within Adzuma, we can assess whether that client or that account is ready for dynamic marketing, whether it's set up and it could use that, and it will go through the steps of how you can best set it up as well. So two really great features that can set you up for success this peak, and kind of both from the start and the end really. The tracking is the first thing that you need to make sure you got in place before you start running anything, and then dynamic remarketing will be really key at that end piece, November, December, when people are ready to convert. So yeah, definitely check those out in the platform as well. As Nikki said, I think we can go on to questions now. There's quite a few questions as we were going around. We've answered a couple of them, but there's still quite a few more in here. So guess we can just take it in turns here, Nikki. The first one I've got is, for higher ticket items like high-end kitchen cabinets, kitchen remodeling, do you find these more service-oriented ads audiences also take as long for conversion timeframes, or is it more lower price products? I mean, from my experience, I think that could be definitely a longer time period, because higher end products, people tend to want to make sure they're making the correct decision when they go to pull the trigger and pay for that higher priced item. So they will tend to do a lot of research, look at different companies, different brands, different models, compare reviews, compare pricing, and really want to make sure they're making the correct decision. So the time frame can be quite a long time for that, and you want to make sure, as we've said throughout this, that you're in front of that customer at the right times throughout that journey that they're going through. Is there anything you would add from that one, Nikki?
No, I think I'd agree with everything that you've mentioned there. The more expensive something is, the more people tend to consider the purchase, make sure they're getting the best deal, make sure that they're buying from a reputable retailer. So yeah, generally the more expensive the item, the longer the journey tends to be, I'd say. And then moving on to the next as yet unanswered question, regarding multimedia ads, is there any general cost per click for this? Any industry averages? So the way multimedia ads work, because they need more visibility in order to be able to run, they need to be showing high up in the SERPs. So you'll see in your campaign settings, you've got a multimedia ads option. And by default, multimedia ads have a plus 40% bid adjustment assigned to them. So that means by default, you're going to bid 40% higher to make sure you're achieving that visibility. That can be increased if you feel that you want more reassurance that they're going to be served more often. So otherwise, it will be around 40% more than your current CPC. Everything else depends. I'm sorry, it's one of those kinds of questions. Depends on the auction, depends on the keyword and how competitive it is as to what the CPC will be. But they do have that uplift just by nature of being a multimedia ad.
Nice. Next question we have is, what's the best way to get first-party data from the website conversions? So again, within the Microsoft advertising platform, you can search for audiences. You can go into the whole audience section, and from there you can create a number of different types of audiences. So if you have tracking in place and you're tracking conversions, this is going to make it really easy as well. You can just create a new audience based off website visitors. So anyone that has been on the website and interacted with that, or you can set time frames. So last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you know, further than that. You can set up different audiences and different engagement. It could be certain pages or category pages that you want to track. So again, you can create that in the platform quite easily. And a similar thing with conversions. Some audiences are actually pre-populated by Microsoft as well, so that they will repopulate some of these things. For example, if you are set up and ready to go from a dynamic remarketing point of view, you can create audiences automatically for you. So what I'd recommend is probably going into the platform, as I said, searching for the audience section, going into that, seeing what's already available in there. There might be some audiences already in there, but you can simply from that screen create audiences based off website visits, as I said, converters, all of those different things from the platform.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I think there's a second part to that question as well, around, is there a way for automated first-party data from website conversions to be added back into campaigns? So what Alex has just described happens kind of in real time. So as you're having users converting, they'll be added to that list as that's happening. So that's kind of updated automatically itself. But there is an alternative option for that first party data, which is a function called customer match, which if you've got a list of phone numbers or email addresses of users who have purchased from you, they could have signed up to a newsletter. It could be whatever reason you have a list of email addresses or phone numbers that you're allowed to use. When I say allowed to use, I mean they've opted in on your site to marketing and that kind of stuff. You can build a list of those email addresses and upload those as well into Microsoft to target first-party data. And if you wanted to do that automatically, if you've got a third-party tool like Telium or any other kind of audience management tool, you can use SFTP or like large file transfer to upload those on a regular cadence into your account. So if you want to use customer match, there is also the option of updating those in almost real time as well. You could update it daily, weekly, however often you think it's necessary, depending on how many purchases you're getting. But as I say, remarketing in itself updates automatically. So that's very easy.
Probably the only thing to add as well I didn't mention was once those are created and in the audience section, you will then need to apply them to campaigns. So apply them to the relevant campaigns or ad groups that you want to target. And then you can, of course, just have a campaign where you're solely targeting those, or you can add them to existing campaigns as an overlay and increase bids for them, which works really well as well.
Lovely. And I think that's everything from us today, if there aren't any more questions. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I hope this has been useful. As I say, we will be following up with the deck afterwards. If you've got any questions from today, if you're not quite sure how to get some of these things implemented, or if you're looking for further resources on any of them, just drop us an email on hello@clicktech.com and we'll do whatever we can to help you get started. Thank you again for joining and good luck for a very profitable Q4. Thanks very much, everyone.